Joe Biden's asked about inflation. Oh, we're moving fast. By the way, his corn hair rows have grown in very nicely in the front there, I noticed. I mean, he used to be bald as a cue ball. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. And gets a little testy. This happens to people, and I mean it seriously, who get dementia. Go ahead.
Mr. President, as you know, last Tuesday, the annual inflation rate came in at 8.3%. The stock market nosedived. People are shocked by their grocery bills. What can you do better and faster?
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective. Inflation rate month to month was just an inch.
All right, stop. Inflation rate month to month was up an inch. When he took over, the inflation rate was 1.4%. Last month it was 8.3%. They'll adjust it in a few more weeks. So he's saying, what's the big deal? It's held pretty steady at 8.3%, but it doesn't work that way. While gasoline prices have gone down and they're moving up again, food prices continue to go up. And they're going to keep going up. Now, why are food prices going up? For the simple reason that fertilizer is made from, among other things, oil. Oil. Here's a war on oil. We have less leases that have been let under this government, under this regime, than any time since the 1940s. They're banning all kinds of oil leasing and oil production on massive swaths of federal property. The federal government owns 25% of the land in the continental United States. They're banning it offshore. They're making it virtually impossible to access and to refine oil. And fracking is under attack, and fracking was the brilliant new technology that made it possible to get natural gas, which tends to float on top of heavy crude oil, to get the natural gas out of the ground that they couldn't get before, and to get it very, very cleanly. And you also have these major industries that are moving away from investing now in fossil fuels and moving toward whatever it is they're supposed to be moving toward. So this is really outrageous. And of course, you think electricity, we've talked about here many times, but you can't say it enough right now. Electricity doesn't come from that. The vast majority of electricity comes from coal, gas, oil, hydroelectric plants, which are shutting down because of the environment, and nuclear power, which unfortunately is not as significant as it should be in this country. So to say we're turning to a clean fuel is a lie. There is no clean fuel, purely clean fuel. All of this adds to inflation. But the problem for food is you need energy every level, every step of the production line, from fertilizer to harvesting, to packaging, to transporting, to placing in grocery stores and supermarkets. We need electricity, often freezers or refrigerators, and certainly lights. They all rely on fossil fuels, all of them. And so if you have a war on fossil fuels, you're going to have a war on food. Go.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it is good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not, maybe I can make it.
It was 8.5 the month before. It's 8.3. But again, that doesn't really tell the story. The statistics are horrible, but certain aspects of society, of the economy, are going higher than other aspects. And also, they changed this whole system a few years back, about a decade or so back. So they weigh and give a certain weight to certain products and certain services, and they downplay food and energy. Gee, imagine the federal government playing with the statistics as they did with the COVID deaths. Go.
Make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's
the highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that. But guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months, it hasn't spiked. It has just barely, it's been basically even. And in the meantime, we created all these jobs.
Okay, let's talk about we created all these jobs. coming out of the pandemic, jobs were being created. And they were slow to be created by the private sector because the government was subsidizing non-work, extending unemployment over and over again, increasing the amount of unemployment and other benefits, freezing rent increases. All these things led to people not seeking work. And you remember these stories about restaurants and others, they couldn't find anybody to help them because people were making more money sitting at home or getting paid under the table than they were taking a job and paying taxes and so forth. So they slowed it down. And all these massive spending bills have further subsidized these sorts of things. And so he says we created jobs. Now what happened was when these programs ended, people needed to find work. Not all of them, but a significant number of them. And so they would go now looking for work. Some people couldn't find the jobs that they used to have. They didn't exist anymore, so they would take menial task jobs, 1 or 2 jobs, sometimes part-time jobs. This is what he's saying. We've created all these jobs. We've created all these jobs. So his baseline is when they were destroying jobs, and then he's saying we created all these jobs. The lying is nonstop. You can see it with your own 2 eyes. You can smell it. You can feel it. You can taste it. The economy is sick. It is very, very sick. Go ahead.
Prices have gone up, but they've come down for energy. The fact is that
prices have not come down for energy, not from 21 months ago. They're still up 35%, energy prices. And by the way, for diesel fuel, it's more than that. And these 18-wheelers, they drive on diesel fuel. Diesel fuel, those costs are passed on if, in fact, independent truckers, but even union drivers, if they can afford to pay the price. It's an enormous amount, and it's more than the price that's gone up for the gas that you and I purchase. Go ahead.
We've created 10 million new jobs.
He didn't create 10 million new jobs. Where did he create 10 million new jobs? He says, we created 10 million new jobs. How did they create 10 million new jobs? It's such a lie, and it's so absurd. Go ahead.
We're in a sense, we came to office. We're in a situation where the unemployment rate is about 3.7%, one of the lowest in history. We're in a situation where manufacturing...
One of the lowest in history because of the people who are out of the market. People are starting to come back into the market. But we still have this huge number of individuals who are out of the market. I'll give you an example. When I'm at the Florida bunker, to get to the studio, I drive past a small area that's a public beach. And when I drive by there, let's say it's a Tuesday, the parking lot is full. Now, who's at the beach? I see a lot of young guys. They seem to be between 20 and 30 years old who are at the beach. Well, who has time at 11 or 12 o'clock during the day on a Tuesday and a Wednesday to go to the beach? And they're there all the time. The government has created that situation. Go ahead.
Manufacturing is coming back to the United States in a big way. And look down the road. We have massive investments being made in computer chips and employment. So, look, this is a process. This is a process.
Is the economy going to get worse before it gets better?
No, I don't think so.
This is the guy who blew off inflation a year ago this time, said it was transitory. Remember, this is the guy who blamed inflation on Putin. This is the guy who blamed oil prices on Putin. Now that he thinks in his own dim-witted way that the economy is getting better, he doesn't give any credit to Putin, does he? So on the one hand, food prices are higher and food availability is lower, and gasoline prices were higher because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. He doesn't even talk about it anymore. Instead, he wants you to believe that everything's getting better. Nothing's getting better. Go.
We hope we can have what they say, a soft landing, a transition to a place where we don't lose the gains that I ran to make in the first place for middle-class folks, being able to generate good paying jobs and expansion.
Gains for middle class folks? The latest figure shows that people who earn about $75,000 a year are losing almost $500 a month due to inflation and other cost increases as a result of his administration and the Democrats spending like drunken Marxists. That's what it shows. And now that they're going to unleash IRS agents against you and against you, you're going to see it's even going to get worse. When you look at his main, quote unquote, legislative successes, he's given welfare to people who took out student loans voluntarily on their own. 1/3 of the population of this country graduated from four-year colleges. And it's those people who are going to be subsidized with your tax dollars. You look at what he's done with the families with kids, how he's subsidizing time off for the parents. That's really, again, that's aimed mostly at wealthier Americans. And again, I'm not against wealth. I'm just explaining what he's been doing. Climate change and the purchase of electric cars and subsidizing electric cars. The vast majority of you are not going to buy electric cars, certainly not right now. So who does that benefit? Again, it benefits the wealthier. When they put a $15,000 subsidy that you're paying for somebody else to buy an electric car, doesn't matter what they earn. The automobile companies increase their prices by $15,000. You think that's a coincidence? So all these things are really being done to improve the lot of people who are upper middle to upper class, as the Democrats and the Marxists talk about it. Not you. You're not benefiting from anything. Zero.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to LevinTV.com and subscribe now.